Names are a very important thing. It's what, like when I say my name, people associate that with who I am and my identity. And especially just like a baby gorilla is very new to world into life, right? So this whole concept of everyone coming together for your naming ceremony, I thought that was a very beautiful concept. So it made me think a lot about identity and its connection to names. So I have like a classical background in terms of like classical music, and there's this concept that's called a tone poem, which is basically like a musical instrumental piece that depicts a story through music. And I thought that was a really cool concept. So creating kind of like this tone poem about a soul experiencing life through the eyes of a baby gorilla, I thought that would be something really cool. The piece that I wrote is called Call Me What I Become, and I wrote it for the gorilla naming ceremony in Rwanda, which is basically based off of Rwandan tradition where whenever someone has a child, the entire village comes together to see the naming of the child. The piece that I wrote is basically a soul discovering life through the eyes of a baby gorilla. It has 4 movements and it's about like 5 minutes. The first movement is called Transcendental, which is basically the realm of souls. And that's where our baby gorilla's life starts as a soul in the soul realm. And like in my personal belief, life is about rediscovering who we are in terms of our soul. So all of that kind of inspired the music in itself. I think sometimes we can get so fixed into our own realities that we forget that experiencing life on Earth is quite a crazy thing. You know what I mean? I think one thing that inspired me was the book Bartimaeus, which is this fantasy book. Basically, at one point in the book, we discover this soul realm. And the soul realm, the way that it's described, is kind of just this place like waters, but basically every single drop is kind of a soul. And in that space, time doesn't really exist. Everything is just coexisting together. The second movement is called Heartbeat, which is basically the beginning of life. It starts off with a singular heartbeat, which is the mother's heartbeat, until you start hearing two heartbeats, which is the baby gorillas and the mother's. I think I'd like them to kind of fall in love with the idea of looking at the world as if you were a newborn baby. Um, and kind of feeling a personal relationship to nature. So for me, creating art that is inspired by nature is super important to me because I feel like we are part of nature. And I think one of the biggest things that scares me, I think we become disconnected from like the most important source of life. So creating art that really is rooted and inspired by nature is super important to me. The third piece is called Belonging, which is basically the baby gorilla learning about its environment, about its community, and that's represented through a really lively dance. And my favorite part about composition is collaboration with really good artists, working with musicians and hearing things go from like the bad playback on my computer when I'm like writing the score and going from that to actually working with live musicians, working with the animation team and see my ideas become movement. That was crazy. Um, Definitely the collaboration that came from that. Starting off with an idea and then seeing other people kind of take it and create their own thing with it. That is like one of my favorite things ever about artistic creation. And then the fourth one is called Rediscovering Identity, which is basically the movement of the baby gorilla getting named. I love, diving into the intersection of classical art and my own experience as someone who lives on intersections of cultures. I'm half Rwandan, born in Canada, and I don't speak Kinyarwanda. I've never had like training as a drummer or training as like a traditional singer or dancer. So I think giving myself the right to explore with this, for me, that was something that felt very vulnerable. And recognizing that I can come to this project with my intersectionalities and it doesn't cancel out the love and appreciation that I have for traditional Rwandan music and that both can exist. I can come at it with a different approach that isn't necessarily grounded in Rwandan tradition, but it still come from an authentic place and still be Rwandan expression, but just at an intersectionality. And recognizing that I could do that for me was a very vulnerable thing. The last piece is called Rediscovering Identity. And I think we're all kind of rediscovering who we are. And I feel like growing up is becoming more confident in your own voice and becoming more confident in the parts of you that have always been there and learning how to listen to them more. Finding your community that show you the really beautiful parts of life, I think, is also a very wonderful thing. So, yeah. Yay! I actually am happy with this. Yeah, but yay, we're done.